I had read the original Stephen King book written as Richard Bachman when I was a teenager, and around the time I started reading Stephen King books. And so I has really stayed with me, the original novel, its intensity and its themes, you know. And I had read the book before I had seen the 1987 adaptation, which I enjoyed, but I even then realized that, oh, this is a very loose adaptation of the book and they barely cover a lot of the story. So I knew as a Stephen King fan that there was like a novel of his that hadn't really been adapted for the screen. And over the years, I'd always like, it stuck with me that it was a great kind of like, you know, sci-fi action adventure. And a big part of it that really stuck with me is the fact that in the book you stay in Ben's point of view the entire time and you go on the journey with him. And you don't cut away to other scenes. He doesn't know what's going on in the rest of the world, only what he sees on the TV. And I just thought that was a really like strong point of view for the movie. So also the crazy thing is that the Stephen King book, which he wrote in 1972, he set it in the year 2025. So the fact that this film is coming out in the last few weeks of 2025 is kind of wild. I think the key thing about the book that I loved was the character of Ben Richards being an everyman, that he wasn't an established action hero. He's not like a trained killer. He's a guy off the street. He's an out-of-work dad who's trying to provide for his family, and he goes to the network building out of desperation to make money. So that was a really important part of it, is that this is a guy off the street who's like, who's, you know, he's tough because he's worked some dangerous jobs, but he's also fallible. He like makes mistakes. He doesn't always have like a plan of action. So that was really important. And also the idea of seeing the entire film through his eyes and showing it from his point of view was really important. Well, I think what's great about Glenn is like he's, you know, he's a proper movie star, but he also is very relatable. And I think he also plays a great everyman. So the idea of having this character at the center of this kind of deadly action just makes it more exciting because you don't know whether he's going to survive. It was an amazing cast, and it was because of the nature of the story, like people kind of like come into the movie and come out again. And so I think it was fun for me and Glenn because every week there'd be a different great actor coming in to shoot on the movie. And, you know, create some really interesting dynamics, you know, like in the scenes with like Glenn and Josh Brolin, in the scenes with Glenn and Michael Cera, in the scenes with Coleman Domingo, like with Lee Pace. Like it was just a kind of murderer's row of a cast, you know? The action sequences were very ambitious because we were trying to shoot as much on location and in camera as possible, and trying to shoot it all from his point of view. So it required like a lot of planning because we wanted Glenn to be the center of a lot of the action. But then some sequences that, you know, are incredibly complicated in the way they play out, like the sequence in the YVA is like sort of a number of different sets and some location work, and just like, you know, when it's all cut together, it's pretty seamless, but like it's like weeks and weeks of work, you know. You know, at heart, it's an entertaining sci-fi action thrill ride, but if it gives you something to chew on the way home, then great.
I play Evan McCone, who is the headhunter. We are a group of hunters that, on the Running Man show, chase down the runners and kill them in spectacular ways for all of America's enjoyment. I love the way McCone is written in the book, and I found it very inspiring playing this character now. One thing we added is that he's got a mask on, so I am completely covered up the whole movie, and there's something about him that is mysterious. He's kind of calm and sly and just in control. You know, Edgar Wright is the reason I did this film. I'm such a huge fan of his, and I was, you know, so honored and excited when he asked me to be a part of this. So yeah, that was I was kind of on for whatever ride he wanted to take me on. And I loved the way he thought about this character, the fun he wanted to have with this character. Evan is violent, but, you know, I had a sense of humor in thinking about him. I find it, you know, he's deadly. He's, you know, for real hunting these people down and killing them. But he's also performative because he's trying to put on the show for the audience. So he's, you know, got his catchphrase. That's game. He's got his like weapon, his gun, his knife and his gun that he's flashing around. If you're really a deadly person, you don't flash your gun around. You know, that's not McCone. We shot in Leavesden, we shot in Glasgow. I mean, what an interesting city to get to know a little bit. But we shot in Sofia, Bulgaria, which I shot some really fun scenes there. Never expected to go to Sofia, but yeah, very interesting place. Very cool, great food. This is a movie. This is like a movie. And it's the kind of movie that you want to get your friends together, get really good seats in the biggest screen you can find, and just go have a good time watching Glenn Powell run for his life. Expect that.
Dan Killian is on top of the totem pole right now. He runs everything. I don't know if he's created the show, but he's running the show as a puppet master. And he's very good at manipulating situations in order to exploit them and get the best ratings possible. Knowing that what people seem to want to see is whether people are able to live up to a potential, and most people are not. What drew me to this role? Edgar, first and foremost. Glenn and Coleman, I was told about them first and foremost, which was very, very attractive to me. I had seen Glenn in Top Gun, and I thought he was very good, and I'd seen Coleman in Sing Sing. But Edgar, I'd known Edgar for a long time. I've known Edgar for a long time. So we were always looking for something to do together, and this was it. With Edgar, it's specific. It's his friendship. You know, I think that he's proven to be a really great filmmaker, so I can rely on that. But then beyond that, there's a shorthand that we have that you don't normally have with directors who you don't know and don't have the history that we do. And we have a long history together. It's a good cast. You know, I'm lucky because, you know, Weapons was a good cast. Knives Out's a great cast. You know, I've been very, very fortunate. But people who are professional and aren't like Killian, bloated with their own egos, they come to the set knowing their stuff, they're into it, and that's great to be around. I'm a big fan of Glenn's. I have been, I think personally, professionally, both. He's great. Coleman, same. I didn't get to work with Michael Cera, but I thought he was great. Lee Pace, I think, is great. So I'm just, it's one of those things that I'm very, very lucky to be working with the people that I am. The sets were great. The sets are over the top, you know, which is appropriate for this movie. But yeah, I had all my stuff with Glenn and Coleman in London. Not just cosmetic entertainment. Something emotional, something they can identify with, something they can root for, not just on a cosmetic level, but on an emotional level.
I play a character named Ben Richards. At the very beginning of the story, Ben is a guy who's trying to provide for his family. His daughter's incredibly sick, and he leaves the house thinking he's gonna sign up for a game show to try to just get his, you know, enough money for some medicine for his daughter, and he signs up for an unwinnable game show, a game show called The Running Man that no one has ever survived. It's a game in which, a reality show where the entire world is hunting one man. And so that kicks off. It's a guy who's just basically going out, who leaves the house just trying to get some medicine for his daughter and ends up on this high-octane adventure just to provide for his family. So, yeah, amazing, amazing story. And I think we all kind of feel like Ben Richards to a degree, a guy who again, an ordinary man against extraordinary odds. Edgar Wright has been one of my favorite filmmakers for as long as I can remember. He's a guy that, I don't know if I've ever seen a filmmaker that has worked as hard as Edgar. I mean, this movie is so in his head and in his heart. He's designed every single frame of it to make sure that it is a nonstop, wall-to-wall action thrill ride. And Edgar is, you rarely see with the action genre being able to have a filmmaker of his level, you know, and with his brain, with the history of all the different genres he's played in, all the different genres he's won in, to put his brain on the action genre. I mean, this movie is, it's heartfelt, but it's action packed, but it's funny. It's just like, it's just nonstop, and it kind of just delivers all the things that makes movies really great. So for me, I'm just like, I'm really proud that, you know, I get to collaborate on a Stephen King book with one of the great filmmakers, Edgar Wright, on one of the great stories. I would say that physically, you know, I knew, as soon as I put down the script, I knew this movie, to shoot it, was going to be war. You know, I knew this was going to be tough. To make an action movie like this, I mean, this, when the entire world is hunting one man, it's going to be brutal. You know, you know that the amount of explosions and gunfire and near-death experiences that Ben is experiencing every single moment of this, it's life and death stakes, like, constantly. You know it's going to be pretty hardcore to shoot, and it was. So physically, I just wanted to build, you know, a physique that could, like, withstand all the abuse that I was going to put it through. And that's really what I did, is I really just said, all right, let's be sprinting every day, and let's be taking, you know, understanding how to almost like sustain war, you know, so that I could get through the shoot. And that's what I did. And then mentally, you know, I think, like, for me, anyone that knows me knows I love my family, knows I'm really close with my family. And what this job is imagination. It's like, if your family, you know, was potentially going to be hurt or die, how far would you be willing to go to save them? And that's what really this story is about. It's about a guy who is signing up for an unwinnable game show in order to show up for his family. And I think that's the emotional place I was in every you know, day of this shoot. I don't know if there was one easy day on this movie. I mean, this movie was really, really tough in every single way because it is life or death circumstances, because we are trying to get all the action in camera. The abuse that you take on a day-to-day basis is pretty extreme. But also, I'm getting to collaborate with, you know, Edgar Wright, who's one of my favorite filmmakers, Josh Brolin, Coleman Domingo, Michael Cera, Lee Pace, William H. Macy. I mean, it is a stacked cast. Everybody delivers. So it is a dream to be out in front of a movie like this, to you know, put on the boots of Ben Richards and to sign up for this ride has been literally a dream come true. It doesn't mean that it's not hard, and it doesn't come with some taxing elements, but I gotta say, across the board, it's like when you start this journey and you leave to go to Hollywood and you go, okay, I want to give this job a shot. This is the kind of movie I dreamed of making, so it's as cool as it gets. I gotta ask Edgar, but I think there's probably something, I think they said like 170 sets in this movie. It is like unbelievable how many sets they built for this thing. This is the first time that we're really honoring what Stephen King sort of intended, but that is a movie where a man is going out into the world, and when the whole world is hunting you, the amount of nooks and crannies of this world that you try to hide in to just survive for 30 days is extreme. On a practical level, it's really, really hard, but it's also really, really fulfilling for audiences because you are never bored. It's wall-to-wall action, and I think, I think it makes it a full cinematic meal. I mean, practically on every level, this is a really tough movie to shoot, but that's why I think that Edgar Wright, a guy who I've never seen a filmmaker work nearly as hard as Edgar, to put something on screen, to not only do right by the original source material, but also just to deliver for audiences. What can audiences expect from The Running Man? I tell you, when you buy a ticket for The Running Man, take your friends, take your family. It is such a fun communal experience because it is wall-to-wall action. It is action-packed, but it's also fun. It's got great heart to it, great performances, great actors. The world is dynamic. It's relevant. It's a story that I think we can all identify with of ordinary people against extraordinary odds taking on, you know, the big bully. It's why you go to the movies.